Elon Musk just destroyed a Russian spy satellite. Now that Russia has announced a space war on Elon Musk, he can no longer just stand by. Therefore, he is now helping the US military build dangerous anti-satellite weapons, or ASAT, that are space weapons designed to incapacitate or destroy satellites for strategic or tactical purposes. Keep watching to find out more. US condemns Russian ASAT. The United States had strongly condemned a Russian anti-satellite missile test that endangered the International Space Station and its crew. The U.S. Space Command stated that Russia had launched a direct ascent anti-satellite missile to strike an old Soviet-era satellite, destroying it and creating a debris field in low orbit with more than 1,500 trackable bits. According to NASA, not only did the debris field force the International Space Station personnel to seek cover in docked spaceship capsules for 2 hours, but it would also continue to pose a hazard to any space activity for decades to come. State Department spokesperson Ned Price came out with a strong statement against the test, stating that the test proves that Russia's claims of opposing the weaponization of space are disingenuous and hypocritical. Price stated that the U.S. would consult with its allies regarding a suitable response. What are anti-satellite weapons? From risking military escalation to potentially trapping humans on Earth due to debris fields, anti-satellite weapon tests carry significant risks. Condemnation of Russia's latest anti-satellite missile test has been both swift and widespread, with everyone from NASA to members of Parliament from New Zealand coming forth to draw attention to the dangerous and highly damaging nature of the test. The test not only has more immediate implications due to the debris field that has been created, but also has much larger geopolitical implications as it comes at a time of growing tension between Russia and the West over Ukraine. What are the dangers of the test? As Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby explained at a press briefing, the most immediate danger from this DA ASAT test is the debris field it has left behind. According to a press release by the U.S. Space Command Public Affairs Office, the old Russian satellite, Cosmos 1408, was struck by the missile in low orbit and has so far created more than 1,500 pieces of trackable orbit debris. Over time, it is expected to create hundreds of thousands of pieces of additional space debris that will only continue to increase the risk for space activities. Why is this the case? Well, the debris in orbit is spinning around the world at very, very high speeds. According to NASA, orbital debris in low orbit circles the world at a speed of around 7 to 8 kilometers per second, and the Earth is surrounded by a lot of man-made orbital debris. If one considers just the debris that is 10 centimeters and larger, NASA tracks over 21,000 individual bits. When it comes to debris that is smaller than 1 centimeter, the number easily crosses over 100 million. Traveling at high speeds, objects as small as screws or even chips of paint can turn into real hazards for space equipment and astronauts that are also orbiting the Earth. The International Space Station regularly tracks the trajectory of the debris and will maneuver around to avoid any risks. All the critical components of the ISS are also heavily shielded and can withstand collisions from debris as large as 1 centimeter, but anything larger is a problem. Space debris is also dangerous for any object being launched into space from Earth with a necessity for complex calculations and shielding to protect rockets from being hit by dangerous debris. In relation to this, there is also the rather nightmarish scenario that is called the Kessler Syndrome. The Kessler Syndrome. Thought up by one Donald J. Kessler, this scenario imagines a large amount of space debris setting off a domino effect as it collides with other space debris or even satellites, creating more space debris in a chain effect that can continue until humans are effectively trapped on Earth due to this cocoon of high-speed debris. These are the risks created by the new anti-satellite weapon test conducted by Russia. The risk from this missile was so immediate that the 7-member ISS crew was actually forced to shelter in docked spaceship capsules to allow for a quick getaway from the station if the worst came to pass. Moreover, as noted by the U.S. Space Command, the debris has the potential to stay in orbit for decades, increasing the risk to the ISS and any other human spaceflight activities. Why is anti-satellite weaponry in general a risk? Anti-satellite weapons, such as missiles, are a risky prospect for 2 reasons. First is the territory where they operate, as anti-satellite weapons encroach upon the slippery slope of putting weapons in space, something all nations are wary of. Indeed, the 1967 Outer Space Treaty explicitly bans military activity in space. Though it was originally designed with the intention of keeping nuclear weapons from being stationed in Earth orbit, the treaty is generally seen as being against any weaponization of space, something that includes the use of anti-satellite weapons, though the treaty does not explicitly state as such. The treaty has 110 signatories, with another 89 states that have signed but are yet to ratify. US and Russia, unsurprisingly, are not signatories to the treaty, but are also the central actors, with the treaty explicitly coming up in the backdrop of the Cold War-era space race. To summarize, the use of anti-satellite weapons, their development, and their tests carry the risk of opening up the Pandora's box of space weaponization. The second factor that makes anti-satellite weapons risky is what they are built to target. Satellites, to put it mildly, are very important to the modern world. From banking systems to their use in the Global Positioning System, or GPS, satellites are key strategic equipment for the countries that deploy them. This is particularly the case when one considers their military application, with satellites forming a key part of military communication and early warning systems for detecting hostile missile launches. In theory, a weapon that can target an enemy nation's satellite systems is a very powerful weapon, as it can cripple a nation in ways that go beyond its military capability. Of course, this is only in theory for now. As is the case with most modern weapons, there is no way to know how such systems would perform in real combat situations. It is also worth noting that modern solid-fuel rockets generally don't have the range to reach military communications and GPS satellites that are at altitudes in excess of 20,000 kilometers. This does not mean that such weapons cannot be created, but it is worth noting that most anti-satellite missiles are meant to hit low-orbit targets, like surveillance and reconnaissance satellites. Regardless, the nature of anti-satellite weapons makes them a somewhat sensitive and controversial military pursuit for any nation with huge implications for geopolitics. This is particularly the case when, as mentioned earlier, the West is already facing tensions with Russia over Ukraine, among other things. Of course, such weapon systems have also been used in more practical scenarios, such as how the US used an anti-satellite missile in 2008 to target one of its failing satellites to prevent toxic hydrazine fuel contamination from the satellite when it would inevitably crash land on Earth. Which countries have such weapons? Though there are other countries that are suspected of having such weapons, only a few countries are actually known to have anti-satellite weapons. The short list of such countries includes the US, Russia, China, and India. India proved that it had ASAT capabilities in 2019 with Mission Shakti when it destroyed one of its own satellites 300 kilometers up in low orbit with an unidentified missile system. China, on the other hand, has been developing its ASAT capabilities since at least 2007, and now claims to be working on laser weapon systems that can not only blind satellites, but also melt them down and capture them. Musk in the mix. Shortly after Russia's invasion, Elon Musk's space company had begun shipping Starlink satellite kits to Ukraine, which included an antenna, a mounting tripod, and a Wi-Fi router. Ukrainians can use the Starlink kits to connect directly to SpaceX's orbital network, which has a total of around 2,000 satellites. During a panel discussion at the Satellite 2022 conference in Washington, D.C., Shotwell said, "I'm proud that we were able to provide the terminals to folks in Ukraine. It's been enormously helpful, I think, to ensure people are still communicating." After Ukraine's Vice Prime Minister Mikhailo Fedorov approached Musk for assistance as Russia's attacks disrupted internet service in the country, the billionaire had Starlink terminals supplied to Ukraine. Not just that, but Elon Musk's Starlink satellite system is helping an elite Ukrainian drone unit destroy Russian weaponry, according to the Times of London. The Aerorozvidka Specialist Air Reconnaissance Unit operates drones modified with thermal cameras to see Russian military vehicles, like tanks and command trucks at night, the Times of London reported on Friday. The drones have been modified to drop anti-tank grenades on targets. The Starlink internet system ensures drone teams can work even if there are internet or power outages, which are rife in war-torn Ukraine. With that, we come to the end of this video. Consider subscribing to join in on our future content.